Real people, real confessions, the stories you weren't supposed to hear. Welcome to Beyond Reddit Stories. I never thought betrayal could feel like a physical blow. People always describe it in metaphors, like a knife in the back, like the ground crumbling beneath you, but the truth is, it's worse than that. When it's the people you love most in the world, the ones you defend without question, it's not just pain you feel. It's disorientation, a kind of dizzying, sickening confusion that makes you question every memory, every laugh, every moment you thought was real. For 9 months, I was the most supportive sister anyone could imagine. I held her hair back when morning sickness hit. I drove her to every doctor's appointment. I even threw her a baby shower, complete with hand-painted decorations and the best cupcakes in town. People told me I was a saint. And maybe I was, but saints don't usually get stabbed by the very people they're protecting. The father of her baby was a mystery. That was the story she told. And I didn't push. She'd been through a rough breakup. And I figured maybe it was a one-night thing she wasn't proud of. Everyone has their secrets. And she was my little sister. My job was to love her, not interrogate her. Besides, she had me. And she had my husband, both of us ready to pick up the slack and make sure she never felt alone. It's strange how the mind works. Looking back now, I see the red flags, the tiny cracks in the picture-perfect family we thought we had. But at the time, I brushed them off. A long glance between them that I told myself was nothing. A shared joke I wasn't in on. Days when my husband's phone would light up with her name, and he'd say it was just about helping her move some furniture or checking on her car trouble. Harmless things, right? I mean, come on, it's my sister. That's what I told myself, over and over, because the alternative was unthinkable. There's this one night that sticks in my mind. She was about 6 months along, and I was making tea in the kitchen when they both came in from the porch. The air felt strange. They stopped talking the second they saw me. My husband asked if I wanted anything from the store, but his voice was a little too bright, like he was covering something. My sister smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I remember my stomach twisting, but I shoved the feeling down. I told myself I was tired, overthinking. That's what you do when you love people. You give them the benefit of the doubt until it rots you from the inside. If you had told me then what I know now, that the baby I was planning to be an aunt to was actually my husband's child, I would have laughed in your face. Not because it wasn't possible, but because I believed we were different. We were family. We were safe from that kind of betrayal. But betrayal doesn't knock politely. It doesn't give you time to brace yourself. It just walks right into your life, smiling, wearing familiar faces. And mine was about to hit me in the most brutal way imaginable. Before everything unraveled, my life was normal, comfortably, almost boringly normal. I grew up in a small town where everybody knew everybody, and I carried that same close-knit mentality into my adult life. I was the kind of person who believed in Sunday dinners, birthday traditions, and making your own Christmas ornaments. The kind of person who thought that family, no matter how messy, was the one thing you could rely on. My sister, Hannah, was 3 years younger than me. Growing up, she was the wild one, restless, impulsive, always chasing something new. I was the steady one, the one who cleaned up after her when things went sideways. Our parents split when I was 14, and after that, I became part sister, part stand-in mom. She hated rules. I loved structure, but somehow we met in the middle. No matter how many fights we had over clothes or boys, we always came back to each other. When I met Mark, my husband, it was like the missing piece fell into place. He wasn't flashy, but he was solid, dependable. The kind of man who knew how to fix a leaky faucet and remember my coffee order without asking. We got married after 2 years of dating, and I honestly thought we had one of those rare marriages that actually got better with time. We didn't have kids yet, not because we didn't want them, but because we wanted to be sure we were ready. I wanted to build a home first, a life we could be proud of. Life before Hannah's pregnancy was simple. I worked as a high school librarian. Mark worked for a local construction company. We paid our bills, went to trivia night with friends, took the occasional weekend trip to the lake. Our biggest arguments were over what to binge watch next or whether pineapple belonged on pizza. It does, by the way. When Hannah's long-term boyfriend broke up with her, it was a mess. She called me at 2 a.m., sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Without hesitation, I told her to come stay with us for a while. She needed family. And we had the space. It wasn't even a question, it's what you do for your sister. Mark didn't even blink. Of course she can stay, he said. She's family. And for a while, it was nice. The three of us cooking dinner together, watching movies, playing board games on Friday nights. Hannah had this way of lighting up a room, and I thought maybe her being with us was exactly what we all needed. She got a part-time job at a local coffee shop, started jogging in the mornings, seemed like she was getting her life back on track. Then, a few months after moving in, she told me she was pregnant. I remember the moment so clearly. We were sitting on the back porch, sipping iced tea, when she blurted it out. "I'm pregnant," she said, her eyes darting to mine like she was bracing for impact. I was stunned, but not angry. My first thought was, who's the father? But I didn't push. She told me she didn't want to talk about him, that it was complicated. I figured maybe it was someone she wasn't serious with, or maybe he didn't want to be involved. Either way, I decided my job was to be supportive, not judgmental. And supportive I was. I drove her to her appointments, helped her set up a nursery in the guest room, and even started reading books about how to be a good aunt. Mark was right there with me, carrying heavy boxes, painting walls, making late-night grocery runs for pickles and ice cream. If anything, I thought her pregnancy was bringing us closer as a family. Looking back now, I realize how naive that sounds. There were little things, small, almost forgettable moments that should have made me pause, like the way Hannah would laugh a little too hard at Mark's jokes, or how he'd linger in the doorway when she was telling a story. Once, I walked into the kitchen and found them standing close together, whispering. They jumped apart like teenagers caught sneaking a cigarette. I made a joke about it at the time, something like, "What's going on here, you two?" They both laughed. And I laughed too, because what else was I supposed to do? That's the thing about betrayal, it hides best in plain sight. It wears the mask of normalcy so well that you start to question yourself before you ever question them. I kept telling myself the same thing, she's my sister, he's my husband. There's no way. And so life went on. We made dinner, watched movies, and waited for the day when I'd get to hold my niece or nephew for the first time. I thought the hardest part of this chapter would be adjusting to having a baby in the house. I had no idea the hardest part would be surviving what came next. The first crack in my blind trust appeared on an ordinary Tuesday. I came home early from work because a student event got canceled. Mark's truck was in the driveway, and Hannah's car was parked next to it. Nothing unusual there. They were both off that afternoon. I figured they might be watching TV or working on the nursery. But when I walked through the front door, the house was quiet, too quiet. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. I checked the living room, empty. Then I heard it. Low voices, coming from the guest room. I couldn't make out the words. Just the tone, urgent, close, intimate. My first instinct was to knock, but before I could, the voices stopped. I heard movement, quick, deliberate, and then Hannah opened the door. Her face was flushed, and she was holding a folded baby blanket like she'd been in the middle of organizing. Mark was behind her, holding a screwdriver. "Hey," she said too brightly, "we were just fixing the crib." I wanted to believe her. God, I needed to believe her. So I smiled, said something about getting home early, and went to the kitchen to make tea. But as I stood there waiting for the water to boil, my hands were shaking. Over the next few weeks, the little cracks became fissures. Hannah's doctor appointments started to overlap with Mark's errands. I'd come home to find them laughing together in the kitchen, stopping mid-conversation when they saw me. I caught snippets of text messages, her name lighting up his phone, followed by him shoving it into his pocket like it was nothing. One night, I asked him point blank, "Why are you talking to Hannah so much?" He looked at me like I'd accused him of robbing a bank. "Because she's your sister, and she's living here," he said. "We're helping her, remember. Or is that suddenly a crime?" I backed off. I told myself I was being paranoid. That pregnancy made women emotional, and maybe her presence in the house was just making me sensitive. But the knot in my stomach wouldn't go away. It wasn't just the way they looked at each other, it was the way they looked at me, like I was an intruder in my own home. The turning point came in Hannah's 7th month. She'd been staying in more, saying she was tired. But one afternoon, she asked if Mark could drive her to a special prenatal checkup because I was stuck at work. She texted me later. Everything went great, but didn't send any details. That night, I asked her about it. She hesitated, then said, "Just routine stuff." I let it go, at least outwardly. Inside, I was boiling. A week later, I found Mark's hoodie draped over the back of the couch. I picked it up to throw in the laundry, and something small fell out of the pocket. It was a receipt from a local diner dated the same day as Hannah's special appointment. 2 meals, 1 milkshake, 1 slice of strawberry pie, and scrawled in the margin, in Hannah's handwriting, was a heart. Just a little doodle, but it might as well have been a confession. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every laugh, every touch, every secret glance. My mind was a carousel of images I didn't want to see but couldn't stop imagining. By morning, I'd convinced myself I needed proof, not guesses, not maybe something undeniable. So I started paying attention, really paying attention. I noticed how Mark's phone was always face down on the table now, how Hannah would suddenly get up to grab something from her room whenever I came into the kitchen, how she wore his old t-shirts around the house shirts I hadn't seen him wear in years. And then there was the day I came home early again. I walked past the bathroom and heard running water, but the door was ajar. Inside, on the counter, were 2 toothbrushes, 1 Hannah's, 1 Mark's, lying side by side, wet. My toothbrush was in its holder, bone dry. The image seared itself into my mind. I didn't say a word that night, but the silence between us felt like a living thing, stretching, tightening. I started to dread being in the same room with both of them. Meals became awkward, conversations stilted. I could feel something coiling tighter and tighter inside me, like a spring about to snap. I told myself I was just stressed, but deep down, I knew I was circling the edge of something I couldn't come back from. The final straw came one rainy Saturday morning. I was folding laundry in the bedroom when I heard them laughing in the garage. I walked over, planning to ask for help carrying a box. The door was cracked open, and I froze when I heard Hannah say, "Do you think she suspects?" Mark's voice was low, "Not if we keep it quiet." My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I didn't burst in. I didn't demand answers. I just backed away, quietly, like a shadow, because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. I didn't need them to confess. I already knew. The day everything came crashing down started like any other ordinary, almost boring. But I've learned that betrayals rarely arrive with warning signs. They creep in quietly, and then, all at once, they're screaming in your face. Hannah's due date was only 3 weeks away. That morning, she said she wasn't feeling well and wanted to rest. Mark left for a quick run to the hardware store. I decided to take the day off work partly to help her, but mostly because I couldn't take the weight of not knowing anymore. By noon, she was asleep upstairs, or at least, I thought she was. I went into the kitchen to make some soup, and that's when I saw it, Mark's phone, charging on the counter, face up. A message flashed across the screen before I could even think. From Hannah. "Can't wait to finally tell her. Feels like we're living a lie." I stood there, frozen, staring at those words. My mouth went dry. My vision tunneled. Before I could react, another message buzzed in. "Maybe after the baby's here, it'll be easier. I just want us to be together without hiding." I don't know how long I stood there, holding that phone like it was a live grenade, but when I finally moved, it wasn't to put it down, it was to scroll, and what I found gutted me. Weeks, months, messages about doctor's appointments, late-night talks, missing each other even though they lived under the same roof, plans for after the baby, and one message, 3 months back, that broke me in ways I didn't know I could break. From Mark, "I've never felt this kind of connection before. I don't care how complicated it is." The sound of footsteps behind me snapped me out of it. I turned to see Hannah in the doorway, pale, hand on her swollen belly. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she saw the phone in my hand. "You went through his phone," she said. Her voice trembling, but it wasn't fear I heard. It was anger. I laughed, sharp and humorless. "That's what you're worried about, that I looked Not that you've been sleeping with my husband. She flinched. It's not like that. Then tell me what it's like, I spat. Tell me why you've been lying to me for months. Tell me why his name is all over your phone like you're. The front door opened. Mark walked in, holding a bag of groceries. He froze when he saw us, his eyes darting from me to Hannah to the phone in my hand. What's going on? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. I turned to him. Why don't you tell me? He set the bag down slowly. I think we should all sit. Don't, I cut in. Don't you dare try to calm this down. I know, I read the messages. I know everything. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then he let out a sigh like this was some burden finally being lifted, and said the words that would change my life forever. She's carrying my baby. The room tilted. My knees almost gave out. Hannah reached for me, but I stepped back like her touch was poison. I choked out, You were supposed to be the father to our child someday. Not. My voice broke. Mark's face was unreadable. It just happened. We didn't plan. Don't you dare insult me with that, I snapped. You don't accidentally do this for months. You don't accidentally betray someone you vowed to love. That's when Hannah spoke, and her voice was different, harder. Maybe you should admit you were never really there for him. For either of us, I needed someone, and so did he. It hit me like a slap. My own sister, standing there, justifying it. And then another twist. Mark turned to her, his jaw tight. Don't act like you're innocent in this. You told me you'd leave her. You said you loved me. But you've been talking to your ex, haven't you? Hannah's face drained of color. What are you? I saw the messages. He said, You think I wouldn't find out. You think you can play both sides. I stood there, reeling, watching the alliance between them crumble right in front of me. You're lying, she whispered. Am I? He shot back. Or did you just not think this through? For the first time in months, I wasn't the one on the defensive. They were turning on each other, fast, and the truth was spilling out in jagged pieces. Hannah, it turned out, had been keeping Mark close for security, financial, emotional, while still stringing along an old flame. Mark, realizing this, was furious. Not because he'd betrayed me, but because she had betrayed him. I should have felt vindicated. I should have enjoyed watching them unravel. But all I felt was hollow. The baby, the lies, the months of secrecy, it was all a mess I wanted no part of anymore. Finally, I said, You know what? You two deserve each other, and I deserve better than both of you. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I walked away not because I'd given up, but because I was done fighting for people who had already chosen to lose me. Leaving that house was the hardest thing I've ever done, not because I wanted to stay, but because walking away meant I had to face the truth the life I thought I had was gone. I didn't pack much, just a suitcase with some clothes, a few photos, and my grandmother's old locket. I left the wedding ring on the kitchen counter. I didn't leave a note. There was nothing left to say. The first few weeks were brutal. I stayed with a friend across town, sleeping on her couch, crying in the shower so no one would hear. Every sound, every text notification felt like it could rip me open again. But slowly, something unexpected happened. The silence stopped feeling like a void and started feeling like space to breathe, to think, to remember who I was before my life revolved around keeping other people happy. I started running again, not to escape, but because I liked the way the air filled my lungs. I reconnected with friends I'd drifted away from. I took a weekend trip to the coast, just me, a small hotel room, and the sound of waves at night for the first time in years. I wasn't waiting for someone else to choose me. And here's the thing, I thought winning would mean getting revenge, or proving them wrong. But I learned that sometimes victory is quieter. Sometimes it's simply walking away with your dignity intact. I'm not going to pretend I don't still hurt. I do. But the pain isn't the same. It's not the kind that keeps you stuck. It's the kind that pushes you forward. That whispers, you survived this. You can survive anything. If there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's this: betrayal says more about the betrayer than the betrayed. You can't control who stays loyal, but you can control how you rise after they fall away. And maybe, just maybe, losing people who never truly valued you isn't really a loss at all. That's my story. It's messy, it's painful, and it's not the kind of ending I ever imagined for myself. But it's real, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that real stories, the raw, unfiltered ones, are the ones that connect us the most. I know some of you listening right now have been through something similar. Maybe it wasn't your sister, maybe it wasn't your partner, but you felt that sting of betrayal from someone you thought you could trust. I want to hear your story, not just for me, but for the people out there who are still in the middle of it, still wondering if they're strong enough to leave, still thinking they're the only ones. Trust me, they're not. So, if this hit you in any way, leave a comment, tell me what you've been through, or what you would have done in my place. And if you think someone you know needs to hear this, share it with them. And if you want to hear more stories like this raw, unpolished, and painfully human, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications. Every week, I sit here and tell you the truth, even when it's ugly. Because sometimes, knowing you're not alone can be the first step toward walking away from something that's breaking you.